Hello, I'm Tracy Dell from the Allergy Clinic, and in this video I'm going to explain a little bit more about the milk ladder and how to use it. So, what is the milk ladder? So the milk ladder is a way of introducing milk and dairy products into the diets of babies and children who have got a mild to moderate cow's milk allergy. And what it does is it introduces milk products gradually and in stages, starting with foods that contain only a small amount of well-cooked milk and progressing towards uncooked dairy products and fresh milk. So that would be things like yogurts and ice creams. It's called the milk ladder because completing each of the 6 steps in the plan is like climbing a rung in a ladder. So you go up and up until you're able to fully tolerate milk and dairy products. Now, it's really important at this point as to who should actually use it. First of all, you should only be following the milk ladder if you've been advised to do so by your paediatrician or by your child's doctor. And it can only be followed by babies and children who've got a mild to moderate cow's milk allergy. That's known as a non-IgE mediated milk allergy. A non-IgE mediated milk allergy. It's not suitable for children who have a milk allergy that results in severe or immediate type allergic reactions. This is known as an IgE mediated milk allergy. And if your child has got an IgE milk allergy, we don't want to go anywhere near trying to reintroduce milk and dairy products into their diet because it could be life-threatening. So, for example, if your child had a nut allergy, what you wouldn't be doing is at home trying to reintroduce nuts. And that's exactly the same with the milk ladder. So if you've got a non-IgE mediated or a mild to moderate cow's milk allergy, you're able to use the milk ladder. If it's a severe allergy, it's called an IgE mediated milk allergy or IgE allergy. You cannot use the milk ladder, really important. So as I said, you should only be starting the milk allergy if you're actually doing it by recommendation of your doctor or a dietitian or a paediatrician. And normally you can't do the milk ladder until your child has been completely on a milk-free diet for at least 6 months. And they don't have any active eczema or gastro-type problems. So they're not having any reflux or upset tummies or discomfort or skin conditions. So you want to make sure that it's out of the system completely. Now, normally we would expect babies to heal very quickly, but when it comes to milk allergies and actually getting everything out of the system, it takes a lot longer because it affects so much of the internal system. So you want to normally wait at least 6 months of being on a completely milk-free diet. Now, that in itself is a problem because there are so many products that actually have dairy in them. So it means as parents or carers, you have to start reading an awful lot of labels. It's amazing where dairy is. So, for example, if you were to buy pre-cooked chicken, very often that will contain milk. And the reason being is that they've used milk to brown the chicken when they've been cooking it to make it look more appetizing. So you really do have to read the labels. Who would expect milk to be a meat? But it is. So you do have to be very vigilant because if you don't take it out of the system completely for that 6 months, the milk ladder isn't going to be as effective. It may not potentially work for your child, which can be very life limiting. And we want to try and introduce as much into them as we possibly can. Of course, while you're doing the elimination and taking the milk out for at least 6 months, your child must be getting nutrition from other foods and fluids which are giving them the things that milk does, because we know that milk is used for development. So, for example, with calcium, there are lots of other fruits and vegetables that have calcium in them that you can use to actually absorb. So when we say no milk, I have parents saying, okay, but I'll be able to give them cheese. No, you can't give them cheese because it contains milk. So it's got to be everything. So that's going to be milk, cheese, butter, yogurts, cream, ice cream, just about anything, well, just everything that's got dairy in it. So you sometimes just have to twist a little bit and think a little bit outside the box. So when you start the milk ladder, what you will do is you will start off by giving them a tiny little bit of milk, and I will put a link in the comments here for a link to some more information about the milk ladder if you want to go through to that. And you will introduce a tiny little bit to start off with. So, for example, on the first step, it would be 1 small cookie or biscuit. And ideally it would be something that you have made so that you can absolutely be certain about the amount of dairy that it's got in it. And your paediatrician will be able to give you recipes. In fact, I'll give you a link through to a very good NHS website that has got some ideas on here as to how to make the right type of biscuit. Etc, etc, all the other foods as well. So you start off with a cookie and a biscuit, then go to a muffin, a pancake, cheese, yogurt, and then going up to things like pasteurized milk and formulas. And that's the other thing, if you're doing the milk ladder, obviously your baby is having formula and you have to make sure that that formula doesn't have any dairy in it. So things like whey products potentially could be a dairy product depending on where the whey is from. So you need to be very vigilant, but that's why you're doing this with your doctor, because your doctor will make sure that everything that you are getting is dairy free. So what happens is that you introduce these products very slowly. So, and it can take a different time for each child to go through it because it depends on how they actually react to the foods. So the foods that have actually on the milk ladder have been selected because of the type and the quantity of cow's milk that they've actually got in them. If your child doesn't like that particular food, you can use alternatives. But again, you need to go back to your doctor, your dietitian, whoever's advising you, and they will give you an appropriate alternative because you need to make sure it's got the right amount of dairy in it. It's really important to get that right. If you try and skate through this part of it, it was pointless doing 6 months of elimination in the first place. So, the questions that I get asked are, how long does it take to complete each step of the milk ladder? And I will say that your child can only move on to the next layer or the next step on the ladder once they are fully tolerating the milk that's in that particular food, that biscuit or that cookie. And that means that they're able to eat that food or that biscuit more than once in the quantity suggested in the milk ladder, and the quantities will vary. And not get any allergic reactions at all. Now, sometimes when we're eating something, it can take 2 or 3 days before we actually get a reaction to it. So you can't just try one day of reintroducing and giving your child a biscuit with some dairy in it, thinking they're okay, and then moving on to the next rung of the ladder. You can't do that. You have to do it for at least 3 days on one step to see if there is a reaction. Of course, if there's a reaction before that, then obviously you've got to look at what you're doing. You can't go up to the next rung, and sometimes what you'll have to do is you'll actually have to go back to no dairy again. Okay, so again, you need to do that depending on the age of your child, etc. You're going to have to do that in conjunction with your dietitian, your child's dietitian. How will you know if your child has reacted to the food? So symptoms of an allergic reaction, you'll probably recognize them anyway because of the fact that you've been having to do the milk ladder. So you know already what sort of reactions your child will have, but it can be things like reflux or vomiting, tummy pain, bloating, diarrhea, the face can swell up, eczema, skin rashes, wheezing. Very often the lips will swell up or they'll get very red around the eyes or the nose. And it could easily be a different reaction from the first time your child had a reaction to milk many months ago. So don't discount it if it's a different type of reaction. It may not be the same. That's really important because your child has grown and their reactions may be different. So if your child has a severe allergic reaction, of course, you have to dial 999 immediately. And that's why you have to deal with the milk ladder properly to hopefully make sure that that doesn't happen. But if it does, then you have to deal with it as a severe allergic reaction. You know, it's potentially fatal, and you need to get in touch with with 999 straight away. So if your child does react to food, you have to stop giving them that food on that step. If you've already gone up a few steps in the milk ladder, you can continue to give them the other foods that they didn't have any reactions to on the other steps of the ladder. But when you've moved up a step and they're getting a reaction, you then have to stop doing that. And you may be stuck on that rung of the ladder for anything up to 3 to 6 months after that, because you have to then get their body back from that reaction before you move on. So it can be a slow process. So if your child is tolerating food, then as long as that's okay, you can start to move up the ladder. But again, you do need to be careful and keep a watchful eye on them. But it's really lovely when they actually get back and are able to eat those foods. In some cases, your child may never be able to tolerate the full milk ladder. From personal experience, I still have issues with dairy. and I'm okay on small amounts, but if I was to have a cooked milk pudding, I would have an issue. But if I just have milk in a cup of tea, a small amount of milk, I'm generally okay as long as I don't have more than, say, 2 cups a day. But if I was to have a milk pudding, I would have a problem if it's a cooked milk pudding. If I have something like a cheesecake where it's not been heated as much, I may get a smaller reaction. So it really depends, but you're managing your child, so you'll know the sort of reactions to look out for, but be vigilant of other reactions that they may not have had before, because it will change as they're getting older and as they're going through the milk ladder. I hope that's helped as a general guide, but please make sure that you do this through your paediatrician, very importantly, or through your child's doctor. But it's nothing to be scared of. It's a great way of trying to reintroduce milk. But remember, you can only do it if they have a mild reaction to milk, a non-IgE milk allergy. If they have an IgE milk allergy, then you cannot do the milk ladder. Hope that's helped. Come back to me if you've got any questions. Thanks. Bye-bye.